What is up, YouTube? B-ball discussions making a return here. Before we get into these playoff predictions, a couple things. If you want us, just skip straight to the predictions. Skip to this time in the video. Alright, so I've been gone for a while, and it's because a lot of good things have been happening. I recently bought a home, and I moved into said home. And the home has a lot of projects that need to be taken care of, so that's pretty much what myself and my fiance have been working on. I haven't really had any time to watch basketball, haven't had much time to create YouTube videos, haven't had much time to do anything other than go to work and then come home and work on projects. But things are starting to settle down more nowadays, and I figured why not just go ahead and make a YouTube video nice and quick, not a script or anything in case you can't tell. This is just going to be my predictions for this first round in the 2021 NBA playoffs. Before we get started, please comment, like, and subscribe if you like basketball content. Let's get going. Starting out in the Eastern Conference, we have the number 1 seed Philadelphia 76ers taking on the number 8 seed Washington Wizards. Alrighty, I think this is going to be a pretty one-sided series. Now, I've read a lot of people's opinions online saying, Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal, they just have to flip the switch basically, because those two players arguably are, well, we'll say two of the best 3 players maybe at their very best in this entire series. The problem is, though, Washington as a whole just isn't deep enough to compete with Philadelphia. The upper echelon of Philly is really good, but then their role players are just better than what Washington has. Now, there are guys who can get hot, like Davis Bertans. He can, potentially hit 6 threes in a game, and then bam, that might swing things one way. But Russell Westbrook is just too inconsistent. Bradley Beal's fine, but he's a little bit hobbled. And there just isn't much else going on with this team. They have a really weird rotation with their center position. Like, Alex Len starts for them, and he plays like 8 minutes. It's kind of funny. Philly, they have Joel Embiid, they have Ben Simmons, then they have a bunch of role players who are really good. Now, the one thing that could screw Philadelphia is injuries to Joel Embiid. I know he has been okay. In fact, this could probably be classified as his best season he's ever had in the NBA. But even so, he still had to deal with some injuries. And he's very prone to getting injured. There's a very good chance we'll be a few games in and he'll miss a few games. And if that happens, then I don't know. I don't really know. So I'm not going to predict that happening. My prediction is that we're going to see Philadelphia win this series in 4. Next up, we have the number 2 Brooklyn Nets versus the number 7 Boston Celtics. This is going to be a rout. A rout. They're going to run a rout. I don't know. They're just going to destroy them. Brooklyn's going to win this in 4 games. That's my final prediction. I'm just going to say that first up. But how can Boston steal a game? They need Jason Tatum to go crazy. They need their role players to hit their threes. And they need one of the big 3 on Brooklyn's team to be MIA. Now, it could be an injury. It could be Kyrie Irving stepping away from basketball for the second or third time this season. It could be anything. They just need Brooklyn to be a little bit chopped up, and they need to be hot. I don't think that's going to happen, though. I'm predicting Brooklyn's going to win this in 4 games. Next up, we have the number 3 Milwaukee Bucks versus the number 6 Miami Heat. Rematch of last year. A lot of people like to rip on Giannis Antetokounmpo's production last season in the playoffs, saying he underperformed in this series in particular. Bam Adebayo's got his number, stupid things like that. It's funny, though, because they're just, I gotta get my words. People love to point out injuries to players, and they love to use that to knock down players that they don't like. For example, when LeBron James succeeds, oftentimes one of the first narratives you'll see online is, but the other team didn't have this player. And that's unfortunate reality of just how sports work. People get hurt. Last season, Giannis was hurt in the series against the Heat, but he played on his hurt ankle, and I think he ended up missing one game, but he played on a hobbled ankle, and you could tell if you actually watch the games, which gets lost to time, unfortunately, but he just wasn't even close to 100%. Well, Giannis is 100% this year. They don't have Eric Bledsoe, now they have Drew Holiday, who is 100 times better, and everything's just clicking for Milwaukee. Miami is the same team they were last year, for more or less. I'm thinking about their roster. I don't know if it's really any different. They have Trevor Ariza, who's actually a better player than... I don't even know who they played last year. Andre Iguodala? I mean, Iguodala still plays, but not much. I like Bam Adebayo. I like Goran Dragic. I like Tyler Hero. I like Duncan Robinson. But I think last year's trip to the finals was not a fluke, but it's not going to be repeated this season. I'm going with Milwaukee in 5. Next up, we have the number 4 New York Knicks versus the number 5 Atlanta Hawks. I'll raise my hand and be one of the few in the room who say I predicted the Atlanta Hawks to be a playoff team this year. I don't remember my exact prediction, but it was somewhere between like 4 and 6, I think. So 5 is pretty much perfect. But I was wrong about the Knicks. I thought the Knicks were going to be dead last, and look at them. They're a home court advantage team. That's pretty spectacular. Julius Randle has been phenomenal for him. Elfrid Payton, I know he gets ripped on a ton, but he's a good defensive player and a good playmaker. Derrick Rose is a great... Not really. I mean, he's a good offensive player, a good team leader. They have a lot of things. RJ Barrett has played really well this season. I like what the Knicks have, but there's always a but. I like the Atlanta Hawks a little more. Trae Young is an offensive master. They have John Collins, Danilo Gallinari. Clint Capella is one of the best centers in the league you could have for like a role guy. Tony Snell, Mr. Legendary, shot 50-50, 100 this season. Yeah, pretty crazy. I just really like the Hawks. I think they're going to win. And this is going to be the closest series of all 4 in the first round, in my opinion. In my prediction, I should say. I have the Hawks winning in 6. Moving on to the Western Conference, we have the number 1 Utah Jazz taking on the number 8 Memphis Grizzlies. Alright, I am very happy to see Memphis get to where they got. They took down the Golden State Warriors in that play-in game, and that was so exciting. Watching Draymond Green chuck that 5-foot open game winner to the left side of the backboard because he can't shoot was just so funny to me. But to this series now. The Jazz are the better team. They really are. But I like Memphis more. I like Ja Morant. I love Jonas Valanciunas' game. Kyle Anderson is really fun to watch. They have Xavier Tillman, Brandon Clark, I think, although he might be out of the rotation. Jaren Jackson Jr., Dylan Brooks, Grayson Allen. I'm just reciting to you their roster. I'm just naming players that I enjoy watching. Meanwhile, the Jazz, it's not like I don't like watching their team. I respect Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell, Joe Ingles, Jordan Clarkson, Mike Conley, but I don't like their bench as much. This is going to be a close series. I know a lot of attention is being drawn towards the number 2, number 7 matchup, but the number 1, number 8 matchup here in the West is also kind of a heavy hitter. Just goes to show the Western Conference is so much better than the East. All right, final prediction. I respect the Grizzlies, but not enough to see them overthrow a number 1 seed. I'm going with the Utah Jazz in 5. All right, next up we have the number 2 Phoenix Suns taking on the number 7 LA Lakers. The best matchup in the first round, I'm predicting. My favorite team in the NBA, Phoenix Suns. I've been watching them since I was a little kid. The last time they made the playoffs, I was in junior high, and it was in 2010, and they lost to the LA Lakers. Kobe Bryant led LA Lakers that would go on, I believe, to win the NBA championship, if I'm not mistaken, that year. And now it's basically a rematch. Of course, the teams are completely different. The coaching staffs, I'm guessing, are completely different. For the front offices might be completely different. I think everything's different now except the logos. And those have been... Actually, I don't think those have been altered. Well, the Suns may have. Anyways, the Phoenix Suns are a great team because of their team effort, I should say. No one player on the Suns is a top 5 player in the league. I would argue that Devin Booker is a top 10 player in the league, but I know a lot of people disagree with that. So let's just say They might have 1 or 2 top 20 guys in the league, and that's about it. Yet they are the number 2 team in the entire league, and only 1 game behind being the number 1 team in the entire league. And that's because of team defense. Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder, DeAndre Ayton. Devin Booker's not a bad defensive player. Chris Paul's a good defensive player. Javon Carter's a good defensive player. Cameron Payne's okay. Dario Saric is a big body. Frank Kaminsky is not a very good defensive player. Jeez, the rest of the guys don't play very much. I love this Phoenix Suns team, and I think they can do a lot. I think they are a little overlooked going into this matchup just because the Lakers have LeBron James. And that brings us to the topic of the Lakers. They have this guy named LeBron James on their team, as well as a guy named Anthony Davis. But after those two, the rest of the roster is good, but underperforming in my opinion. Dennis Schroeder, I've been a big fan of his entire career, going back to the Atlanta Hawks days. Yet this year, I feel like he's not as good as he has been. I don't have any numbers in front of me, so maybe I'm completely wrong. I'm just saying based off of what I've seen, what I've heard. I know Montrezl Harrell is not as impactful as I thought he would be. He didn't even play very much in their play-in game. They opted for Andre Drummond, who I respect Andre Drummond, but his offensive game is quite limited, and he's not the best perimeter defensive player. The biggest problem the Suns have going into this matchup is the fact that they do not have any backup rim protectors, and that was the issue that they've had the entire season. I thought that as the trade deadline / the buyout deadline approached, they should have chased someone like Hassan Whiteside. And I know people don't respect Hassan Whiteside, but he's a rim protector. He's a backup rim protector. That's what I think he could be. And the Suns just said, nah, we're fine with DeAndre Ayton. All it takes is Ayton to get 2 fouls in the first quarter and the Suns are screwed. That's all it takes. If that happens, because, LeBron James gets every call in the world, now the Suns are throwing Frank Kaminsky out there, who you could blow over with a little gust of wind. And Dario Saric, I do like as the Suns center, but he's not a rim protector. And that's the biggest issue the team has. Now, the rest of the defense is great. The rim protection is lackluster. Oh, man. Offensive firepower. I think the Suns are more consistent. In fact, I know the Suns are more consistent, but LeBron James in the playoffs is pretty consistent as well. Okay, I've been rambling too much about this one matchup. Phoenix Suns and LA Lakers. I'm going to go with the unpopular opinion. Phoenix Suns in 6. And I know I've commented on a few videos. You might find my comments out there. I said Suns in 5. I think about it more and more. I'm saying Suns in 6. All right, next up we have the number 3 Denver Nuggets and the number 6 Portland Trailblazers. This is an exciting matchup. It's kind of unfortunate that Jamal Murray is out. Now we have Campazzo playing, which I do like. I really like his game. Nikola Jokic is amazing. He's probably going to be the MVP. Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr. are 2 of the best, second and third options you could have on any team. The Trailblazers have Damian Lillard, of course, CJ McCollum and Yusuf Nurkic, as well as a variety of guys who just shoot threes and play defense. Oh my goodness. I'm going to go with the Nuggets in 6 because this is going to be a good matchup. And it sucks for the Trailblazers. It really sucks because they've never really been much better than they are right now. Even 2 years ago when they made the conference finals, it was kind of just, shots happened to fall and other shots didn't fall and they happened to barely get up to that point. But as a whole, they're still pretty much the same team. I don't know if they're going to ever win a ring with the big 3 of Lillard, McCollum, and Nurkic. Yeah, they can. It's stupid to say they'll never do it, but it's going to come down to getting better pieces around them. There are guys in this roster who are just dead weights, and if they could replace those with actual contributing players, then they could beat the Nuggets, but that's not what's going on here. In the last matchup, we have the number 4 LA Lakers taking on the number 5 Dallas Mavericks. I think this one's really funny because the I said Lakers. I meant to say Clippers. The number 4 LA Clippers taking on the number 5 Dallas Mavericks. I think this is really funny because the Clippers tanked at the end of the season to intentionally line up to play the Dallas Mavericks. And I don't know why. I would have rather played the Trailblazers. The Blazers are not as good of a team. Like, the tippity top of the Blazers, in my opinion, is not better than the tippity top of the Dallas Mavericks. And the Mavericks have, I think, not by a lot, but they have better role players. Luka Doncic could be the MVP. If the team would have won like 8 more games, Luka Doncic might be the MVP. Kristaps Porzingis is the biggest wild card in the entire series. He might get hurt and play 2 games. He might average 25 a game on good efficiency. It's going to be one of the two. I hope it's the former. Or is it latter? The one where he does good. I don't know that word. Then the rest of the role guys, like Tim Hardaway Jr., very underappreciated scorer. A bunch of other dudes. Meanwhile, the Clippers they're so unlikable. It's so funny how it has happened, because I used to root for him. Like, back in the day when they had Baron Davis and Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, I thought they were a fun team to watch and root for. But then they acquired Chris Paul, which is funny because I'm a Suns fan. Like, nowadays, I like Chris Paul. But during that little run of his career, he was just this complainer. And Doc Rivers was a big complainer. Austin Rivers was a complainer. Blake Griffin became a big flopper. They became so unlikable. And then they went through a very brief run where they were kind of a wishy mishmash team with a bunch of guys who just couldn't fit in anywhere else, like Danilo Gallinari, Ivica Zubac, Montrezl Harrell, Lou Williams, Landry Shamet. I really liked that team. And then they kind of just, paid up the big bucks to go get Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. And now I don't like them anymore. Paul George just isn't very likable. I'm looking at both these teams, and I'll be honest, I've seen one game. I'm recording this on the 23rd of May at noon. So 4 of the first round games have already happened, but the other 4 have not. So I've seen the first Clipper and Maverick game, and the Mavericks did win. And Porzingis didn't even have a great game. So that's a problem, Clippers. I'm going to predict the Mavericks take this series in 5. All right, there you guys have it, my first round predictions. I hope you enjoyed. Please comment, like, and subscribe. Once we get this house moved in a little better, I'll start uploading more consistently. I have a dedicated office where I should have some privacy to do narrations and just work on videos. It'll be good when things get rolling. We're just still going through this move-in phase where a lot of things are still technically in boxes or just not even here yet. Like, we don't even have a washer and dryer yet. It's kind of annoying. Anyways, comment, like, subscribe. I will see you all next time.